Blind in the fire. It is 2:17 a.m. on March 4th, 2026, and the Arabian Sea is not quiet. It has not been quiet for 6 days. Since Operation Epic Fury ignited the sky over Tehran on February 28th, the waters stretching from the Strait of Hormuz to the Gulf of Oman have become one of the most contested bodies of water on the planet. Somewhere in the darkness below, Iranian fast attack craft run without lights. Somewhere above, a chain of surveillance satellites watches every ripple. And somewhere in the center of it all, surrounded by a ring of destroyers, cruisers, and submarine contacts that no one publicly acknowledges, the USS Abraham Lincoln cuts through 4-foot swells at 17 knots, her flight deck alive with the roar of returning F/A-18 Super Hornets and the low, constant throb of her 2 nuclear reactors pulsing beneath 97,000 tons of steel. The Lincoln is not just a warship. She is a floating sovereign entity. A mobile airfield capable of projecting power 300 miles in any direction. Her strike group has logged 61 combat sorties in the past 72 hours. Her magazines are running lean. Her crew of 5,200 has not slept more than 4 hours at a stretch since the conflict began. The smell below decks is a compound of jet fuel, hydraulic fluid, recycled air, and the particular human smell of people who have been too busy to care about anything except the next task. In the Combat Information Center, the lighting is the cold blue of LCD screens and status indicators, and the air is cool and dry from the climate systems that protect the electronics. And the hum of the ship's systems is so constant that people have stopped hearing it, the way you stop hearing your own heartbeat until the moment it changes. And now, at 2:17 a.m., the Combat Information Center, the nerve center buried deep within the carrier's armored hull, is about to receive a track update that will make the exhaustion irrelevant. The SPY-1 radar feed populates the large format display in columns of data: bearing, range, altitude, velocity. The watch officer does not need to ask questions. He has seen this signature before, 3 nights ago over the strait when an Iranian Shahab 3 variant came within 19 kilometers of the guided missile cruiser USS Bunker Hill before a Standard Missile 3 Block 2A tore it apart at altitude. What populates his screen at 2:19 a.m. is not 1 track. It is not 3. The system resolves 11 distinct ballistic trajectories climbing out of a launch cluster in Fars province, Iran. Launch time, estimated 90 seconds prior. Apogee, approximately 700 kilometers. Time to impact window, 14 minutes and 40 seconds. 11 inbound ballistic missiles. 1 carrier strike group. 14 minutes and 40 seconds. The air defense commander does not pause. He does not reach for a procedure card. He has run this exact drill so many times that the sequence lives in his hands before his mind has finished processing the numbers. The Cooperative Engagement Capability network pushes track data across the entire strike group simultaneously. USS Bunker Hill to port, USS Sterett to starboard, USS Mommsen and USS Stockdale arrayed 2 miles ahead in a modified diamond screen. Every SPY-1 radar in the group is now locked onto the same 11 objects, cross-referencing trajectories, computing intercept geometry, assigning engagement responsibilities. The system is elegant. It is precise. It is working exactly as designed. And then at 2:21 a.m., the lights go out. Not all of them. Not immediately. It starts as a flicker, a half-second brownout that the crew barely registers as anything more than fatigue-induced imagination. Then the brownout deepens. The main engineering control console on the 3rd deck registers a fault in bus tie number 2, the primary switching assembly that feeds electrical power from the Lincoln's 2 nuclear-powered steam turbine generators to the forward combat systems distribution grid. The fault code appears, holds for 3 seconds, and then the breaker trips. In the span of a single heartbeat, the Combat Information Center loses primary power. The massive SPY-1 phased array radar, the most powerful naval radar system in the world, capable of simultaneously tracking hundreds of targets across 300 miles, goes dark. The Aegis combat management system, which was in the process of computing firing solutions for 11 inbound ballistic trajectories, loses its operational state. Every screen in the CIC goes black except the emergency battle lanterns, which bathe the compartment in dim amber light that makes every face look like it belongs to someone in a photograph from a war that already ended. The carrier is blind. 14 minutes ago, there were 11 missiles in the air. Now the Lincoln does not know where they are. What the crew of the Abraham Lincoln has just experienced is not a combat hit. There is no fire, no flooding, no structural damage. What they have experienced is something the engineering staff will later describe as a cascading electrical fault. A chain reaction triggered by a power surge in the ship's forward combat systems grid. Almost certainly the result of an Iranian cyber penetration that went undetected for 72 hours, embedding itself in the bus management software and waiting for the right operational load to detonate. The adversary has not fired a missile at the Lincoln. They have fired a line of code, and it has worked. In the first 60 seconds after the blackout, 3 things happen with extraordinary speed. The ship's nuclear reactors do not shut down. They continue to generate power. The problem is not generation, it is distribution. The bus tie fault has isolated the combat systems grid from the reactor plant. The ship has power. The ship simply cannot route it where it needs to go. Second, the strike group's outer ring of destroyers and the cruiser Bunker Hill still have their Aegis systems operational, still hold tracks on all 11 inbound objects, and are already computing and assigning individual intercept envelopes. Third, the ship's nuclear engineering officer, a 15-year veteran whose hands are steadier than the instruments he carries, is already moving. He does not walk. He moves through the passageways of the Lincoln at a pace that borders on controlled violence. 2 electricians mates behind him, each carrying a heavy canvas tool bag that clangs against the steel bulkheads. The smell in the engineering spaces has changed. There is the permanent background smell of hydraulic fluid and hot metal that never leaves a warship. But underneath it now is something sharper. The acrid, specific bite of electrical insulation beginning to scorch somewhere behind the bus tie assembly. Not yet burning, not yet a fire, but trending toward one with every passing second. The engineering officer does not need to be told that 11 ballistic missiles are inbound. He does not need to be told how many minutes remain. He needs the bus tie reset, and the path to that reset runs through a manual bypass procedure that is 12 steps long, requires 2 people working simultaneously on panels separated by 8 feet of cramped cable run, and has never been performed at speed under combat conditions. He begins at step 1. At 2:24 a.m., the air defense commander aboard the cruiser USS Bunker Hill takes tactical command of the strike group's missile defense. His SPY-1 is operational. His Aegis system holds all 11 tracks. His VLS cells carry a mixed loadout of standard missile 3 Block 2A interceptors for the ballistic threats and SM-2. Block 3C for any terminal phase maneuvering. He designates engagement priorities based on trajectory analysis. 7 of the 11 inbound objects appear to be aimed at a dispersed impact footprint, a saturation pattern designed to overwhelm point defense. 3 are tracking toward the carrier's estimated position with what the fire control system calculates as CEP, circular error probable, of less than 60 meters. 1 missile, track designator Sierra 7, is behaving differently. Its trajectory is not the clean parabolic arc of a standard ballistic missile. It is adjusting. Minor course corrections, undetectable to the naked eye but visible in the tracking data as small perturbations in the predicted fall line. Sierra 7 has a maneuvering reentry vehicle. It is not simply falling toward the carrier. It is steering toward it. The Bunker Hill's fire control system has already assigned 2 SM-3 Block 2A rounds to Sierra 7. The intercept geometry is workable. Not comfortable, but workable. The engagement will occur at altitude in the mid-course phase over the Gulf of Oman. If both interceptors miss, the terminal defense will fall to the CYWS and the CRAM systems. The Air Defense Commander authorizes engagement. The first SM-3 leaves its VLS cell at 2:26 a.m. with a sound like a thunderclap and a column of white flame that turns the sea beneath it pale for 3 full seconds before the rocket motor burns out and the kinetic kill vehicle separates and begins its long cold arc toward the upper atmosphere. Below decks on the Lincoln, the engineering officer has reached Step 7. His hands are inside the bus tie cabinet, working a manual override linkage that is designed to be operated with specific tooling that he does not currently have. So he is using a ratchet from the tool bag and a length of steel conduit as a cheater bar to generate the torque the procedure specifies. The skin on his right palm is beginning to blister. He does not stop. One of the electrician's mates is reading Step 8 from a laminated procedure card by the light of a battle lantern held between his teeth. His voice is flat, calm. The kind of calm that comes from 11 years of muscle memory, not from the absence of fear. The cable run smells worse now. The insulation is definitely scorching. They have perhaps 4 minutes before it becomes a fire. At 2:27 a.m., the first SM-3 misses Sierra 7. The kill vehicle passes within 18 meters of the reentry vehicle, close enough that ground stations pick up the infrared flash of proximity, but no impact, no structural damage, no deviation in the target's flight path. The second SM-3 is 30 seconds behind the first. The Air Defense Commander watches the tracking data and does not change his expression. He designates a third SM-3 from the Starret for Sierra 7 as backup. The Starret's fire control system acknowledges the tasking and begins computing a late intercept solution. The geometry is getting worse. Sierra 7 is descending through 400 kilometers altitude now. The intercept window for mid-course engagement is closing. Across the strike group, the other 10 inbound tracks are being systematically engaged. The Momsen fires 2 SM-3s against the 3 highest priority non-maneuvering tracks. The Stockdale fires against 2 more. The Bunker Hill is managing the coordination while simultaneously conducting its own engagements. The sky above the Arabian Sea is populated with intercept geometries, crossing trajectories, and the silent cold ballet of kinetic kill vehicles attempting to find specific points in space at closing velocities measured in kilometers per second. At 2:29 a.m. Step 10, the engineering officer completes the manual override linkage on the secondary bus tie bypass. He cannot verify that Step 11 has been correctly configured. The panel indicator light is part of the dead grid, inert, useless. He verifies it by touch, running his fingers along the physical position of the rotary switch and comparing it to the etched label below. The switch is in the correct position. He moves to Step 11. The electrician's mate reads Step 12. They are 8 seconds from attempting a manual restoration of bus tie number 2. At 2:30 a.m., the second SM-3 intercepts Sierra 7 at 312 kilometers altitude over the Gulf of Oman. The kinetic kill vehicle makes contact with the re-entry vehicle's midsection, and the impact transfers energy at a rate that is simply incompatible with the continued structural integrity of the missile body. The track designator Sierra 7 disappears from every radar screen in the strike group simultaneously. A brief thermal bloom registers on the infrared feed. Then nothing. Then debris falling in a wide fan across the upper atmosphere, each piece too small and too slow to constitute a threat. The carrier is still blind. 3 of the original 11 inbound tracks have not yet been successfully engaged. 1 has been lost. Tracking systems calculate it may have suffered a guidance failure on its own, or a fragment from a nearby intercept may have damaged its seeker. 2 remain active. Both are in terminal phase. Both are falling. The Air Defense Commander assigns CIWS and CRAM to both remaining tracks and watches his screens with the specific alertness of a man who has done every correct thing and is now waiting to find out if correct was enough. At 2:31 a.m., the engineering officer executes Step 12. He closes the manual bypass breaker. The lights come on, not all at once. The combat system's grid restores in sequence, each major load coming online in a controlled cascade as the automatic load management system routes power from the reactors through the repaired distribution path. The SPY-1 radar on the Lincoln requires 11 seconds to complete its restart sequence and begin transmitting. The Aegis combat management system restores its operational state in 14 seconds, pulling current track data from the strike group's cooperative engagement network and rebuilding its tactical picture in real time. The Combat Information Center transforms from amber twilight to the sharp blue-white of operational lighting. Every screen alive, every console populated with data, every operator back at their station. 8 minutes and 14 seconds of total blackout. The SPY-1 acquires the 2 remaining inbound tracks at 2:31:38 a.m. The fire control system evaluates the engagement geometries in 0.3 seconds and determines that both threats are within the terminal engagement envelope of the Lincoln's own defensive systems. The CIWS, the close-in weapon system, a 6-barreled 20mm rotary cannon that fires 3,000 rounds per minute, has already acquired track Alpha 9, which has descended through 8 kilometers altitude and is 41 seconds from potential impact. The CRAM, a rolling airframe missile system derived from the CIWS mount, has acquired track Alpha 11, which is coming in on a shallower angle faster 11 kilometers out. The Air Defense Commander does not hesitate. He authorizes full autonomous engagement for both systems simultaneously. The CIWS opens fire on Alpha 9 at 2:31:52 a.m. The burst lasts 1.3 seconds. The reentry vehicle, already falling through 2 kilometers altitude, already inside the last breath of effective intercept range, absorbs a sufficient density of 20mm tungsten penetrators to destroy its guidance package and detonate its warhead prematurely. The resulting airburst occurs at 980 meters above sea level, directly off the Lincoln's port bow. The crew on the flight deck feels the pressure wave before they hear it. Several sailors are knocked from their feet. 2 Super Hornets that had just landed are pushed sideways on the deck. The flight deck lighting arrays on the port side shatter. But the carrier's hull is intact. The flight deck is intact. The reactors continue to generate power without interruption. CRAM engages Alpha 11 with a rolling airframe missile at 2:31:58 a.m. The intercept occurs at 4 kilometers range. The warhead detonates in mid-air, well short of the strike group perimeter. The debris footprint falls into the sea half a mile east of the USS Sterett, close enough that the Sterett's crew can see the splash pattern from the bridge. Silence. Not complete silence. There is the wind, the engines, the grinding of the flight deck elevator, the distant sound of search and rescue helicopters that have been airborne since the first engagement and are now scanning the water for any surviving debris that might provide intelligence on the Iranian missile's guidance package. But the tactical silence, the specific absence of the automated threat warning tones that have been a constant presence for the past 14 minutes and 22 seconds. The Combat Information Center holds its collective breath for 12 full seconds before anyone speaks. When the Air Defense Commander finally authorizes the all-clear status broadcast across the strike group, the response from each ship comes back in sequence. Bunker Hill, Sterett, Momsen, Stockdale. Like a roll call from people who needed to hear each other's voices to confirm that the night had not taken any of them. It has taken something, though. The tally is assembled over the following hour as the sun edges toward the eastern horizon and the Arabian Sea returns, grudgingly, to something resembling normalcy. 11 inbound ballistic missiles, including one with a maneuvering re-entry vehicle designed specifically to defeat the intercept geometries that Aegis was expected to use. 8 minutes and 14 seconds of total carrier blackout caused by an adversarial cyber penetration that was patient enough to wait 72 hours for the right moment. 7 SM-3 Block 2A interceptors expended, each valued at approximately $27 million. 14 CRAM rounds. 4,011 CIWS rounds. 1 flight deck lighting array destroyed. 2 Super Hornets with minor structural damage from the port side blast overpressure. 3 sailors treated for minor injuries sustained during the overpressure event on the flight deck. 1 engineering officer with second-degree blisters on his right palm treated at the ship's medical bay and returned to duty within 90 minutes. The adversary came within 980 meters of striking a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier during the opening phase of the most significant U.S. military operation in the Middle East since the 2003 invasion of Iraq. They used not only ballistic missiles but a carefully prepared cyber weapon, timed with precision, designed to create a window of vulnerability at exactly the moment when the carrier's defenses were most needed. It nearly worked. It did not work because 1 officer with a ratchet and a cheater bar and 11 years of muscle memory completed a 12-step manual procedure in the dark, under combat conditions with scorching insulation and a ticking clock and the full weight of 5,200 lives resting on weather step 12 seated correctly. The crew does not celebrate. There is no announcement over the 1MC general announcing system, no congratulations passed from the bridge. The commanding officer receives the status reports from the air defense commander, from the engineering officer, from the ship's medical bay. He reads each one. He acknowledges each one. He orders the watch rotations to continue without modification and goes back to the chart table. The work is not done. It will not be done for days, perhaps weeks. The adversary is not finished. The region is not quiet. The mission continues. The Lincoln resumes flight operations at 4:45 a.m. By 6 a.m., she has launched 8 more sorties toward targets in the Iranian interior. By noon, the flight deck crew has patched the destroyed lighting arrays with temporary fixtures and cleared the minor FOD, foreign object debris, left by the blast overpressure. The portside damage is documented, photographed, and entered into the ship's maintenance log as a combat event. The engineering officer submits his report at 7:30 a.m. It is 3 pages long and written in the clipped, factual language of someone who has fully processed the experience and filed it away. The Iranian military has expended a significant portion of its remaining ballistic missile inventory in this strike. Intelligence assessments compiled over the following 48 hours will indicate that the launch complex in Fars province was itself engaged by B-2 strikes 18 minutes after the salvo. A retaliatory strike that was already programmed before the first missile left the ground, reflecting the U.S. military's expectation that this attack was coming. The launchers are rendered inoperable. The support infrastructure is rendered inoperable. But the knowledge that a single line of embedded code combined with 11 ballistic missiles came within 1 correctly executed manual bypass procedure of crippling the most powerful conventional warship on Earth. That knowledge does not go away. It goes into classified briefings. It goes into engineering revision cycles. It goes into the nightmares of people who understand, with the clarity that only proximity can provide, exactly how thin the margin actually was. The ocean does not remember the names of the people who stood between it and catastrophe. But the ship does. And so do they.